Good morning from Easier Habits Live. I'm Alec.
And I am Meg.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about being halfway through our 8-month goal of a repeatable client acquisition model. And we'll talk a little bit about how your outreach has changed, like what techniques you use, what you're looking for, any mindset shifts, or how the experience of doing outreach is different, etc. But first, the communication tip.
I'm not sure if I feel like I've addressed this somewhat, but I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the assumptions that we make in the conversations that we have. And one of those things is that the words that we say mean the same thing, right? That we think that they do. And I know I've mentioned that before where, a word that I would use is different from the word that someone else, even who's a native speaker, might use. But this is more in those kind of generic assumptions, right? The assumptions of what types of things people are going to bring up as opposed to what things they won't. And without going into too much detail, the thing that kind of brought this up was kind of an area of, we'll say, disagreement that happened about a month ago. And it was with someone from Japan, and they had told me something, and I accepted that. And then after they had changed their mind, and said something else, part of the justification for that was that I should have asked them if that was really true. And I thought about that, and I was like, but you told me that thing. So why would I ask if that's true? I just accept that the things that people tell me are true. But, again, kind of thinking about it, like, all right, in Japanese culture, certain things you do, like, check to triple check to make sure that that's actually true. Or, there's the, kind of Asian thing of someone offers food and you say no, with the expectation that they're going to offer it again, and then you can accept. If you accept it the first time, that's almost seeming like too eager or rude or something like that. So it's polite to refuse, and then it's offered again. Whereas in America, if you offer someone food and they say no, you're not going to offer it again, right? You just kind of accept the no. And so understanding what those assumptions are and recognizing that they exist and being accepting of the different miscommunications that can happen, but also being willing to move forward with that and accepting them for what they are as learning experiences. So
interesting. So your assumption of that is, right, they were offered something and they changed it, and your experience is like, oh, well, they told me it was one way and then they completely changed their mind. But like in what you're saying, maybe in their perspective, was that they offered you something expecting you to refuse, and then they would have fallen back to their, okay, how about this?
Yep.
You never refused, so they just switched it up.
Yes.
Interesting.
Right? I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I know you know what I'm talking about. Yep. And I'm like, how did that happen? Like, that is as I've been kind of like putting together the pieces of the conversations we had after that, that's the only thing I can think as the biggest disconnect in what had happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. And, I don't blame either party, like things are whatever, but it was just an interesting experience.
Yeah.
That I'm learning.
All right. So, I wanted to ask you, I guess, quick status update. We're sick, so we're out for a few days. But with the marketing stuff, I kind of took a beat with that because I had been doing some marketing using Facebook leads, but it actually didn't work. The product was broken, so we couldn't get those leads. I was able to find out one small interesting bit of information that the 2 leads we would have gotten had Facebook been working, I think, were 40s or 50s and female in demographic. So like knowing more about your demographic is interesting, and there's some like more speculation in terms of creating like a user avatar. That's not a big sample set, but I wouldn't call that a complete loss, right? Typically, when you try something, sometimes it feels like you're getting nothing and getting nowhere, but I'm like, oh, well, that actually is an interesting piece of information, as well as the fact that maybe LinkedIn advertising, though more expensive, might be more reliable. So
exactly. Yeah.
That is something to try out. I don't know if they have a leads solution thing, but in any case, that is something we're still developing, but I want to check in with Meg just in terms of her manual process of outreach, how that has changed.
So it's been interesting. I think partially because back in the beginning when I was doing my outreach, it was more just like, hey, I'm a person, I exist, but I didn't really have any specific offerings. And so I was just giving value where I could, find it, and then with other people just like cultivating the relationship, but not so much like sales or even marketing. I wasn't really talking as much. Occasionally I would do that, but mostly with the people that I already knew. And there's always that part of me that's like, marketing to people I don't know very well or who don't know me very well. I don't want to be that burden or whatever, but having this 5-day challenge coming up, having something concrete to offer them, saying, hey, I've got a thing that's happening, it makes it a lot easier to do that outreach. I also find myself with that gravitating more towards those relationships that I'd begun to cultivate back in November, I think, when we started all of this. So I think it's interesting when I'm, kind of cold calling or cold messaging somebody. It's more generic, and maybe it would be good to offer my 5-day challenge, but I feel like offering something like that to someone I don't know, if someone were to do that to me, I'd be like, spam. And so I actually kind of like that, with the cold outreach, it's just working on the relationship and then being able to offer this to people who I believe it will actually help, and then kind of also posting it on my Instagram or on my Facebook group or whatever, and I've gotten a few people from that actually. So for me it's working. I mean, maybe I could be more proactive in some of that stuff, but I'm still trying to find that happy space where I don't feel spammy and still feel like I'm doing enough. So.
Well, and just recently it seems like you are not only getting people into the 5-day challenge, but you're picking up a few new clients. Yay! And at a faster rate than before, it seems like.
Yeah, so I have 14 people signed up for the challenge, which is awesome. But I will say the people that I have been doing other things with, sorry, my brain is like, I'm still a little bit loopy sick, but I'm okay. So one of the clients that I had an exploratory session with earlier came from Nutski, actually, who I am starting to do some collaborations with. We're starting to do our own lives and everything on YouTube, which is fun. And we have ideas for doing seminars moving forward. And then another one was from my outreach, and that one I've got this evening, so I'm excited for that.
Yay!
Yay, exploratory sessions. And I think especially with that one, the fact that I had this thing already, this 5-day challenge, was particularly instrumental in reaching out to her, because that's exactly what she needs right now. She's got this that she's working on in Japanese. I asked her if she had an English one, and she was like, no, I think it would be good, but I don't really know how I would do it. And I'm like, I can help with that. And, in addition to being interested in the 5-day challenge, she asked me about my rates and, what it would be like, moving forward. So she actually wanted to meet with me before the 5-day challenge, which I thought was great. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a lot more just targeted in general, where I'm able to see the people that I think I'm going to be able to help more. And so, I'm not just kind of like going out to as wide, spreading my net wide, but I'm able to kind of target those people.
Right. Well, you're essentially creating a funnel, right? And I'm kind of curious, when you say like your cold outreach is generic, what do you mean? Like how do you reach someone absolutely new?
So it's usually someone who I've seen in a group or in a room or something like that, who's talked about something I find interesting. And that's basically the extent of it. So it's really like, hey, that was a really interesting, thing that you were talking about, or asking them a question about it. There's a lot of people right now who are working on like kid entrepreneurship skills, which cool. I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And English would most certainly be helpful there. So I find things that people are doing that are useful and interesting that I could potentially, benefit. And then seeing, how I can cultivate those relationships such that I could find out if it was of value to them or not. And then, kind of see where it goes from there.
Cool. And just in terms of like the volume of outreach that you're doing now versus 4 months ago, has that changed?
I'm not doing as much now as I was before.
Interesting.
But I do feel like the outreach I'm doing now is more effective. Okay. As far as like actually getting me leads. But I also feel like I wouldn't be able to do the same level of outreach, like the depth of outreach that I'm doing now, if I hadn't done that broad outreach in November and December, where I was just kind of like messaging bunches of people. So now like I don't have to worry about people knowing who I am so much. But I'm able to say, hey, I've got this thing. I think you would like it. You would like it. You would like it.
Well, and that is the broad outreach, right? That was still part of our experiment. We started our experiment essentially in November, right? Yeah. So that was still part of it. I'm kind of curious about like before we started anything.
Oh, before we started anything?
How was your outreach?
Oh, my outreach was terrible.
Okay.
My outreach was like non-existent.
Okay, I'm just bringing this to
a
point.
I thought you were talking about like 4 months ago when we started this.
Well, like right 4 months before we'd started this, right?
Before we started this, oh gosh, no.
Right.
Oh,
we hadn't done all of this yet. Well, and that's kind of my point. I was like, oh wow, you were doing a lot more than I realized.
No, I'm sorry. No, I was.
All right.
I was not doing outreach until we started.
So you've been kind of doing this year versus, previous.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and so, this year versus like this 2 months versus the previous 2 months
is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's good, and this is something I do with clients, is just like step back and take a look at what we're what has changed from before any of this process to afterwards. And this is one of the things where it's like, I admittedly am not a marketing expert.
Yeah.
However, right, we've seen, so the volume has increased, the purpose has increased, it has taken a while, but you are getting clients at a higher rate.
Yeah.
Plus you also have an intermediary way to introduce yourselves. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing.
Yeah.
That pathway from someone doesn't know you to somebody is a client. And a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to go from zero to client, right? But creating an inviting pathway, I think, like that is the game. That is hard. It takes time. It takes a lot of experimentation, and that's what you're starting to do with figuring out broad outreach. What am I looking for? Like who to focus on to invite to what? What are my intermediary invitations? Building all of that out. We call that a funnel, right, in sales, but like really that's just the process, like understanding the process that goes from someone is a stranger to somebody is a client, and that's hard.
Yeah, it is. Well, and it's, for me, I don't like thinking of it as a funnel because there's always that idea of like you're trying to force them into that thing.
It feels kind of very mechanical and like me based.
Yeah. So as opposed to like a pathway or something like that has, multiple entry points, multiple exit points. There's no, like, I mean, yes, for me, there is that kind of client acquisition. I would like them on this path for, certain things, but also because their path lines up with mine at the same time. Right. So it's more about, we all have these different paths, and if they're wanting to go a certain direction, I can help them with that
Mm-hmm.
and then send them on their way. And so, but I have to get them, they have to at least be able to see my path. So where's
Right.
the signs pointing towards it? And, things
Yeah.
like that. I like that kind of imagery better. And that I, can go out of my way to find them as well. I'm not just like, everybody come to me kind of a thing, and I will make you go through this little funnel and whatever. So yes.
Well, and a user experience person will call this like a user journey or customer journey, right?
I like
that idea. And some of the things you're talking about are being able to recognize, like what you're saying is I'm able to help them. I mean, the skill there as a business person is being able to identify good potential customers. Like being a good salesman is not about trying to get people to buy stuff they don't want, because they're not going to like it anyway. They're not going to refer you. They're not going to be a repeat customer. Like that is a terrible business model, right? But that's what everyone thinks about sales.
Yeah.
A lot of sales and marketing is finding the people who would benefit from what you have to offer, and then offering it in a way that they understand, that resonates with them.
Yeah. And I think that right there is because I've had so many people selling to me stuff that I didn't want or need or anything like that. And so those are the interactions I remember, because they leave kind of that icky taste in your mouth or whatever. But if I can, go back and think about like times when I actually needed something and, I went through somebody else's funnel and ended up getting some benefit from it. I'm trying to think.
Like, if you went to the store and were like, I want some toothpaste, and they're like, maybe we have toothpaste, maybe we don't. Like, rather than, here, go to aisle, A4, grab it, and put it in your cart and check it out, right?
Yeah.
Like, if there wasn't a clear process for what they're offering and how you get it, would you go to the store? Would you go to a supermarket?
Yeah. See, and the image I have in my mind is I walk into the supermarket, going for like oranges, and someone is like, here, I have toothpaste. You need this toothpaste. Do you want this toothpaste? This toothpaste is really good for you. You want this toothpaste, right? And I'm like, leave me alone.
Yeah, but like, again, like I would say, like, before we were working with you, where you didn't have a clear offering, like, and a lot of people didn't even know, like, not even intermediate offers. Like, a lot of the people in your circle that knew you didn't even know you were taking clients, paid clients for English, right? That is kind of like going into a store and they're being like, and being like, do you have this? And they're like, maybe.
Well, not even,
we don't know.
Not even like I wasn't asking them. They weren't asking me. I was that kind of person off in the corner, and they're not sure if they can ask me. And I don't want to be like, pushy and say, hey, do you need toothpaste? But that is what they were looking for. But I didn't know that. And they didn't know that I could answer their question, because maybe I'm over in cat food.
So
sorry, I'm taking this metaphor way crazy places.
Anyway, but that whole point, I think there's a couple of things that happened. It's just like, what's changed, right? Like, structurally, procedurally, to produce, like, we may not, we still have about half of our time to get to an automated customer client acquisition process. So we're still definitely could do that. But like, we are seeing some vast improvements in the process, right? We are creating a process, right? And we're starting to see more clients, right? And not only more clients, even though you haven't run the 5-day challenge, just offering it, having something to offer has actually resulted in a client. So we're seeing changes in the client acquisition model. And it's not necessarily because I'm the world's greatest marketing expert, right? I had to go to a consultant. We had to go to a consultant to get, some of the specifics, get a suggestion for a 5-day challenge and other avenues and doing competitive analysis, etc. But just by the virtue of that we're focused on that, you started to spend more time doing it. So it's just like the volume increased, right? Doing that, you had to think about, who am I talking to? What am I having to offer? And just consistently reviewing those things, iterating, trying different things. Like, it takes a while, and you don't see it like week to week always, but like that really has layered into a place where you're talking to more people. There's more clear versions. You're helping people. It doesn't feel Like the people you're talking to that are becoming clients, does it feel spammy?
No, not at all.
Right.
Not
So
at all.
you're finding the way to help people and be clear about who you are without feeling spammy, right? You're developing all of those skills, and they appear one at a time, but like 4 months in, we're talking night and day difference.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really hoping that this one I'm meeting with today might lead to some other ones as well, because she works with other people in this space. Mm-hmm. And so while my targeting her was, you know, I say targeting her, I was listening in a room where she was talking, and I thought it was really interesting what she was doing. And then I did some, you know, looked up her stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh. She could totally use this, and she knows a lot of people who could totally use this.
Nice.
So for me, it was win-win, right? Mm-hmm. Because she needed it, and I need her, you know, as a client, or something like that, if that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, so hopefully things go well.
Yep. We'll see that. That sounds great. The one thing I talk. Just exploring this process, right? Mm-hmm. It sounds like we're starting to get to a point where if there's someone you kind of know what they're doing and what their business goals are, you know, getting them either directly to client or to the challenge mm-hmm. and then upsell, like there's pieces of that can get tweaked, mm-hmm. but it sounds like you kind of see all those pathways.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
All right, and the one piece that seems more, that seems less clear as I'm listening to you is, all right, so how do you regularly move people from stranger into I kind of know them to know enough whether this would be good for them?
And I feel like that's where the outreach that I was doing at the beginning of this mm-hmm. stuff, the November, December stuff, that was really useful for that mm-hmm. because I was just reaching out to people, getting to know them, and seeing what kinds of things they were doing. And they were that kind of surface relationship. Right. But that, you know, that's where the massive outreach is useful because then I can just meet lots of people and see, you know, kind of triage if they would potentially be a lead or not, kind of a thing.
All right.
So
yeah, in that case, it sounds like that was very general, right?
It was. But it helped me figure out who those people were. Right. So who the ones were that might be interested in that thing.
And so it sounds like, one, that would be good to kind of create that user avatars. You're finding people for whom this resonates.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of go directly to seeing someone who fits that profile, and it's not so awkward. Like there's a more direct approach to either using an advertising, right? Mm-hmm. So they just see it on their screen and they can click if they're interested, if it's a good fit, right? It's, you know, not necessarily jumping in front of them or whatever, like cold DMing someone, you look like someone who needs this, right?
Yeah.
So
I usually like to ask them a question or be like, I thought this was really cool.
Absolutely.
You know.
But the other thing that I'm hearing is that was something you did more November, December, so it's not happening now.
Not right now, very much.
Right.
Yeah.
So probably what's going to happen then is you're focusing on this easier, clearer part of the funnel, mm-hmm. right? That's slowly going to empty.
Yep.
And
so I need to figure out a way to balance that so that I can keep having new contacts coming into that. So I think, figuring out what that balance is probably going to be one of my things for this next week, because I'm not going to be trying to get people into my 5-day challenge because I'll be running the 5-day challenge, but I will want to, you know, get to know people who might be able to do the next one.
Right. Exactly.
So figuring out how to map that out.
Yeah, that'll probably be a great Monday discussion in terms of, all right, so how do we make sure we're spending time at all stages of the funnel?
Yeah.
Right? You have people who are heavily engaged, i.e. 5-day challenge. You have people that, you know that might be interested in the next one, and, you know, et cetera. And then you have, you know, the warming people up.
Yeah, definitely.
Section. All right. So, that was great. Any other last reflections on how your outreach has changed or developed?
I think that's good for today. How's your voice doing? My voice, I don't have a whole lot of voice left.
That's all right. Yeah, we should probably finish up, but that was very good.
Yay.
Yeah, it's always nice to reflect. Like, wow, we've grown a lot.
We have.
So, I I wanted to do a quick recap of the posts while weren't doing videos, trying to at least do a post with some of the learning tips. And I thought they fit really well together, and I don't want you to miss that. So our last video, I talked about as I started getting into how to learn more effectively, because you're going to be doing a lot of that as an entrepreneur, a small business, etc. How do you learn faster and more effectively? And one of them is to like be aware not only of what to learn, but what not to learn. You don't have to learn everything. You don't have to read an entire book, right?
Right. No, I remember when I first realized that I don't have to finish this book, or I don't have to read all of it, just the pieces that I need. Like, wow.
Right. I'm kind of a completionist. Like, I like to finish books, but yeah, I have to dial that in sometimes if my purpose is learning, not just reading because I enjoy it and I'm curious. Yeah. But with the posts, I added a couple of things that all fit together and help you focus. So one is using mind maps. So a mind map is a central idea with radiating branches off in different directions, and each branch has, ideally a single word, maybe a short phrase. The branches are in different colors, and that branch branches off further. You could replace the phrase or complement it with a picture. So they're different colors. It's very visual. It's not all of the words you would use if you were doing traditional note taking. It's like the keywords to remind you of the concepts and their relationships. So the goal of a mind map, again, is not to capture literally so that someone who, didn't read the book would understand what's going on. It's for, or listen to the video, etc. It's for you as someone who did listen to the video to be able to remember quickly and vividly, all those pieces of information. And so mind maps are a really powerful way of seeing the whole lay of the land. And you can combine this with my previous tip in terms of focus by actually marking off or crossing out or whatever you want to do the pieces you don't have to learn. So like map off everything, right, in a book, like all the subjects of a book, and then you can intentionally like cross off pieces to help you focus, to help you actually go through this process of what not to learn. And then the last thing that you can do with a mind map that makes learning a lot powerful and faster is spaced repetition. And that's where you review your notes at longer and longer intervals. So for example, you can pick intervals, experiment with intervals that work for you. But just for example, right, if you are learning marketing, if you're learning about how to do Facebook ads, right, you might mind map everything out there that is there is to know about Facebook ads, and then you might focus on the pieces that you're most interested in, like what makes a good picture or what makes a good headline, etc. And things that you're not as interested in, you can, different styles of ads, etc. A/B testing, maybe you're not there yet, like maybe that's a not right now thing, you just need to start getting ads up. So you mark that off. But then when you have this mind map, right, after you've produced it, listen to some videos on how to do, good headlines or find good creatives, then review that mind map, your notes, after 10 minutes, then after an hour, then at the end of the day, then at the end of the week, right? Longer and longer intervals, but you're reviewing it multiple times. So what does this do? If you have a mind map, you have a very concise set of notes, so it doesn't take forever to like pick out the key ideas and remember the information, but then repeating it several times at longer and longer intervals will help you to really ingrain that in your memory, and so that you, like, the important details will be there. Now, do you have to use spaced repetition with every piece of information? No, right? Like, that's only the stuff that's really key that you're learning. And a lot of the learning in terms of business will come from practice. So unlike school, it's not as much like, I need to memorize the facts. But still, sometimes it is helpful to take the big bird's eye view of everything, have that in your head, and then, the pieces that you're focusing on and the key strategies for those pieces, like reviewing that, can be really helpful, not just in terms of like memorization. You're not going to like have a multiple choice test about this, but just in terms of focus. So that's how all those pieces work together. What not to learn, using the mind map, and spaced repetition will really transform a lot of your learning so that you can learn more faster at a deeper level. All right. My voice is going.
I was like, it's gone, it's gone.
All right. Until tomorrow, make big changes one small habit at a time.